Have you lost your job? Have you lost a loved one? Are you exhausted caring for your parents, for your kids? Well, you can find immediate relief when you read Sheila Mac's new #1 bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It contains the Boots formula to move from rock bottom back into action in any situation, especially right now. So if life has knocked you down, pick yourself up with Bootstraps and Bra Straps. Get your copy at www.SheilaMac.com today.
Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio, Mondays at 1 and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and today we have special guest Daniel Geffen. Daniel went from jumping on classroom tables and getting detention for wanting attention to impacting millions of people in his underwear. Oh my.
Yes, right. I'm actually wearing pajamas right now.
All right. He went from being completely invisible with no online following to growing his top-rated podcast to over 250,000 downloads, interviewing billionaires and world-class leaders, and becoming an international best-selling author in less than 2 years. After being pitched hundreds of times by lazy PR agencies, he launched Geffen Media Group, one of the first podcast booking agencies, and helped influential authors sell hundreds of thousands of books by getting them on top-rated podcasts. Seeing a gap in the market for people who couldn't afford to hire a booking agency, he launched Podbooker, a platform for guests and hosts to easily connect. Daniel lives in Israel with his wife of 13 years and 5 little rascals. Oh, wow. Well, welcome to the show. And
Thank you.
Here right now. I'm tuning in from Nevada, like Las Vegas.
Vegas.
Yes, my regular home is Beverly Hills, so we are far apart and yet worlds together. I love this new way of connecting. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes. So, Daniel, I'd love to start off. Now, this show is based on my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And this year, globally, we have
Well, I know about bootstraps, but bra straps, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, this is every situation. And the bra straps, so when I was a little girl, my grandmother had a clothing manufacturer in Catalina Sportswear. So she did swimsuits and bras. And so I thought, well, men usually they say, pull up your bootstraps. And I said, well, ladies are coming along. So we'll pull up our bra straps and we'll all get back on track when we hit tough situations. So it was just a fun play on words. And yeah, so I would love to hear maybe a story or of a time in your business or personal life where you hit a tough situation and how you got back on track.
Okay, great question. So in my first company, I really had no idea what I was doing. And I was kind of playing the role of, secretary and sales guy and debt collector and customer service rep and invoice bookkeeper, the whole shebang, right? And I realized very quickly that I actually sucked at all of them. I really wasn't good at any of those roles. I was very good at sales and promoting what I was doing and coming up with creative ideas, which is kind of the entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. That's what most people listening to this, if you're an entrepreneur, you'll relate to that. But everything else kind of I just really didn't excel at. In fact, one of the people that worked for me, she was a 65-year-old grandma, and I ended up making her cry one time because she just had a really bad, she was having a bad day, and she got into a bit of a thing with one of our clients on the phone, and me being very protective over my baby kind of told her off about it. I guess I was being insensitive back then, but she burst out crying, and I was 25 years old at the time, and I thought, oh my God, this is crazy. I can't be doing this. But ended up getting a sort of like someone to run the business, an operator. And that was going amazing. She was basically running the whole company. Everything was going great. She was chasing invoices. She was dealing with customer service, all the things I hated to do. She did. And then one day she calls me up and she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Daniel, I can't come into work." And I said, "Oh, is everything okay? Are you going to be able to come in tomorrow? Or, do you need a few days off?" And she's like, "No, Daniel, I unfortunately was suicidal. And unfortunately, I can't come back to work." So that was it. She wasn't able to come back, and I thought I was losing the whole business. Like, I thought, that's it, the business is done. So I ended up calling up my business mentor, and I basically cried on the phone to him, told him, like, it's over. Like, I can't run this business. We have hundreds of clients, and I don't even know how to service them anymore. And after about 20 minutes of me feeling sorry for myself, he's like, "Daniel, shut up and go do something about it." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You're an entrepreneur. You need to figure this out. You got to get creative, figure a solution." And that was it. He hung up the phone, and tough love. And I went for a walk, and my creative juices started going, and my back was against the wall. And I came up with a solution, and I ended up outsourcing that entire company to a competitor of mine, and I still own 100% of the business today. It's been 9 years. It still runs on its own, and I don't have any involvement in it. So that was an incredible situation.
Wow, that's wonderful. What a great thing. And that's true. This year, I think we've all had to kind of course correct and figure it out.
Yeah.
All over the place with the pandemic and everything else going on. It's been an interesting year and very challenging, but look at the blessings and the growth that happened in your life when you went back and just took charge and got creative.
Yeah. I think we get the most creative in a way when we struggle with something, when we have pain. When there's pain, we find a way around it. We find a solution.
Yes. And I'd love to hear more about the underwear story.
The underwear story. Yeah. Well, the underwear story is very simple. So it's all about basically how I got into podcasting. So about 4 years ago, I'm playing tennis, and I love tennis, especially when it's nice and hot. I got a phone call the phone call that changed my life, if you will. So the person on the phone said to me, "Daniel, I heard you have an interesting business story, and I'd love to have you on my podcast." And I'll never forget what I said to him. I said, "What the heck is a podcast?" I had no idea what a podcast was. And in fact, 4 years ago, I think most people didn't know what a podcast was. So when he explained to me what it was, I got really excited, because at that point, I had never spoken in public before. The only time I spoke in public was on high school tables, as you mentioned before. That was my experience speaking publicly. But other than that, no public experience speaking. I had no social media following, no online presence at all, nothing. So I got very excited and said, "Sure, I'll be a guest on your show." And I went on the podcast and just started sharing my story, how I built the business and everything. And I just fell in love with the mic. I was like, "This is amazing. I could speak for hours. I could speak for days." And a very short, it felt like a very short period of time, but an hour went by, and the host said, "Well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for being on the show, Daniel." And I said, well, thank you so much for having me. And of course, there was this question in my mind, because I'm sitting there in my underwear or my pajamas, whatever you want to call it, in my house, staring at a wall, really. And I'm thinking, well, who's listening to this? That was the question I had. Yeah, how many people are listening to this? 5, 6, 7, you know? So I asked him, I said, well, how many people are listening to this? And he said, well, there's over 1,000. And I fell off my chair. I said, excuse me, what? 1,000 people? Are you serious? He's like, yeah. I'm thinking, wait, there are like top speakers who go on stage, and if they get 1,000 people in the audience, that's a packed crowd. And there's little old me who has no following, nothing, who has no experience, and suddenly there's over 1,000 people listening. This is crazy. I said, well, where are all these people? He said, well, they're all over the world. And he starts listing all these countries. And I thought, this is mad. This is crazy. I need to get into podcasting. So being the kind of, you know, action taker, I like to take action, especially because I've always been a self-help addict growing up. So the way to break the addiction, the self-help addiction cycle, is to just take action, is to get into action mode. So I got into action mode, and within 2 weeks I had my podcast up and running, but I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I called it, Can I Pick Your Brain? And I wanted to pick the brains of the most successful people in our generation. Well, there were only 2 problems. Number one is I didn't know any successful people to interview. And number 2 is, how do I get people to listen to this? You know, how do you build an audience? How do you get people to listen? So suddenly I had this aha moment where I realized that guy had 1,000 people listening to his podcast. Right. So why don't I just get on other people's podcasts as a guest, and I'll just leverage their audiences instead of trying to figure this all out myself and trying to build my own audience. I'll just, you know, borrow other people's audiences. And that's exactly what I did. And like you said, within a very short period of time, I grew my podcast to, you know, it was actually over 300,000 downloads, and I just interviewed some incredible guests on the show. And then I started getting bombarded with emails from PR agencies and book publicists trying to get their clients on my show as guests. And of course, there were 2 problems. One, they didn't have a relationship with me, and I didn't have a relationship with them. I didn't know who they were. They didn't know who I was. They were very lazy about their approach. And 2 is their clients sounded dead boring. I mean, I wish they had clients like you, Sheila, you know, bootstraps and bra straps. I would have said, sure, yeah, that sounds amazing. What a great creative title. But they all sounded so bland and boring, and clearly they didn't know how to present themselves or position themselves. So I kept sending all of these emails to spam, and I'm getting dozens of these every day for months. So about 3.5 years ago, I wake up one morning, and I had this light bulb moment that went off in my head. I said, well, hold on a second. You know, people are paying these PR agencies and book publicists, you know, crazy amounts of money, and they're not even doing a good job of getting them on podcasts. Well, I've got my own top-rated podcast. I'm friends with other top-rated podcast hosts in the industry. It's, you know, it's a small world, right? We all know each other. And I've been a guest on 60 podcasts, and I've interviewed over 150 high-profile guests. So I've got the relationships, and I know what a great guest sounds like and how to position them, and I know what top hosts are looking for in a guest. Why don't I start a podcast booking agency? And that's how Geffen Media Group was born.
Wow, that's incredible. And it is very difficult, for sure. I know that I got 11 podcasts from the people I was working with, and I booked 65 on my own. So that, right. and they got paid. so that happens a lot with, when you're starting a new book and you have things, there's only so much the company is going to do. So you need to take action, and you need to find things like Podbooker. That sounds incredible. I didn't find you until now. So yeah, to get on there. So that's incredible. That really
Podbooker came about because I realized I was only serving a small market. There was only a small percentage of people that can afford to hire an agency. And so I thought, well, what about all these other people that are wanting to get on podcasts? How do they find podcasts, and how do they get booked on them? And on the flip side, you have now over 1 million podcast hosts that are looking for guests, and only the top, I would say maybe the top 10%, maybe less, are getting guests from agencies, and they're finding guests themselves. So what about all these other million podcast hosts that need guests? Where do they find them? And that's where I realized, what if I create a marketplace where guests can easily find podcast hosts and then pitch themselves and get booked on the show, and hosts can easily find guests and invite them to be a guest on their show. And that was the idea for podbooker.com.
That's incredible. And it's so helpful. It's one of those things that it doesn't matter if you're an author, if you have a business, if you want to get your message out more, it's really helpful to get on the air, on podcasts, on radio shows, different options, so that you can get your message out. Because right now there's so many messages out there. And, you know, if you're able to align with somebody that has a similar audience, it's a lot easier to get your message to people that really need to hear it. I always say, before I do my show, I say, whoever is showing up, it's going to show up. They're going to show up in perfect time, and my audience will turn on the radio or listen to the podcast later, and they will hear the message that only like Daniel can give to them. And that's my goal in what I'm doing, is to get the message out to help people get back on track this year and through any tough situation they may be going through. So that really helps, and it makes a big difference in people's lives. So if you think you have a message and you're not sure, just test it out. Test it out with a small group of friends. Have you ever sat down and all of a sudden all your friends are surrounding you and they want to learn more about your business? That's all you need. You already have what you need. So you don't even have to worry. And you're looking at a wall. You don't have to worry about people. People will hear you, but you don't have to worry about an audience. It's not the same as public speaking. It's a little less intense, I think.
Yeah. And you have to think also, what's the worst that can happen, right? You know, you go on a podcast and let's say it doesn't work out the way you want it to work out, right? And so next, you know, just you get on another podcast. That you just have to keep doing it. I mean, when I started recording my own podcast, I hated the sound of my own voice. Oh my goodness. I mean, I would listen to myself on a podcast or recording a podcast, and I'd be going, oh my God, who the heck is that? Sounds so weird. That's not me. But then as you just keep doing it and you keep putting yourself out there, you get to a point where you actually like the sound of your voice. You sound good to yourself, right? And I think that a lot of people, when they start out, there's that you know, fear and that shame, but I really believe that it goes away with action. It doesn't go away with thinking, right? You could try to think your way out of fear, but whenever you try to think your way out of fear, it always seems to win. So the battle can't happen in your head. It has to happen in action. Action gets rid of fear very quickly, right?
Yes. And so like you mentioned earlier with personal development, being a personal development junkie, and I definitely was one as well. And I still love to fuel my mind with really positive things to help me in my life and business. However, the secret to personal development or self-development is the self. If you don't take action and do the work, you can go to every event, listen to every show, and you will never have any results. You need to do the work. And like you said, it took you 2 years and you know, it sounds like a short time, but it's still 2 years. And there's people that will try something out. They'll try a new podcast. They'll try to get on 1 or 2 shows, and they'll say it didn't work. And that's the thing where you need to be in for the long term. So make sure that your goal and your outcome is aligned with your values, and that this is something you really want to stay in for a while. Gary Vaynerchuk says it takes 3 years to build a brand. You got there a little earlier. And so that's the thing. It does. It's not something that's overnight.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And also what's amazing about the podcast space right now, speaking about Gary Vaynerchuk, by the way, you know, he could be a little bit overwhelming sometimes. You know, you gotta hustle your face off. You gotta, you know. So I'm just like, okay, I need to chill. Like, it's a bit extreme, man. Calm down, you know. But you know what? Everyone has their taste. Like, you know, everybody has kind of what they can handle. But Gary Vaynerchuk, you know, one of the things he says is he goes where there's undervalued attention. right? Undervalued and underpriced attention. And that's how he built his whole brand. Was he saw YouTube when YouTube was nothing. Nobody knew what YouTube was. Most people were like, nah, why would I post videos online? That's weird, right? So he got in at that time where it wasn't saturated. And so it was much easier to get, to become an authority in that space. And that's what he did. Well, podcasts right now is, I believe, where YouTube was back when Gary started. Yeah. So some people come to me, they say, Daniel, I don't know, I think it's maybe a bit too late to get into podcasting. Like, there's over 1.5 million podcasts already out there. And I stop them. I say, do you realize how many YouTube channels there are? Right? There's over 100 million. 100 million. Okay. Do you know how many blogs there are on the web right now? There's over 1 billion blogs. Okay. So 1.5 million is a drop in the ocean. It is tiny. It is just the beginning. Now is the time to get into podcasting while it's still new. It's still new. Yes, there are over 150 million Americans listening to podcasts, which is amazing. The demand is there, but the supply, the content, it's still small, and it's now the time to get in. And I'll tell you something else. Back in the day when Google, for those of you that remember Google SEO and pay-per-click AdWords, it was a joke. I mean, it was like printing money. For a very small amount of money, you would be on the top of the first page of Google, or you would pay 10 cents a click for some big keywords. Today, those same key terms, those same keywords are probably, I would say, in the region of $15 to $20, maybe even more per click, right? To get on the top of Google today, you've got to invest thousands of dollars a month to be competing on there, right? So same thing with Facebook ads. Everything gets expensive when the market becomes saturated. Well, here's some great news for you, for anyone listening to this. Right now, it's free to get on podcasts. In fact, the one that I'm on right now that you're listening to, Sheila didn't charge me any money. This is not costing me any money. How long have you been producing this podcast for?
Really about a year, but I went over to radio. So now my radio show is 4 months.
Right, but you've been doing this for a year now. Okay, yes. So that's a year solid that you've been working, and you put in a lot of work, right? I can't imagine. I mean, I can imagine because I've done it. Right, you got to prepare for the guest. Then you got to find the guest. You got to prepare for the guest. You got to produce the episode. You've got to edit the podcast episode. You've then got to promote it on all the social links and all that stuff. Right? There's so much work that goes into this, and guess what? I come on as a guest and I barely do any work. And all this work that you've done, you're not even charging me for. Now, here's the thing. That's going to change. I predict that within a year from now, podcasters are going to start charging their guests to be on their show, because why not? Why not? You're giving them access to your entire audience. Why wouldn't you charge? Right? But right now it's free. It's a free market. You could get on 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 podcasts, and it won't cost you anything except just for your time. Now, you're going to be kicking yourself in a year from now when suddenly it's going to cost you $100, $200, $1,000 to get on a podcast. In fact, I know right now there are podcasts that charge a lot of money. In fact, one of them charges, I believe it's $3,500 per guest to be on his show. Now, 6 months ago, it didn't cost anything. It was free to get on that same podcast. Can you imagine? People, you will be absolutely kicking yourselves if you don't take advantage of this right now.
Yes. And you mentioned the Google. So that's one thing, between my podcast, radio show, and my book, when you search me, I come up first, and I'm the first few pages of the Google, and my book comes up right at the top. And so I didn't pay for this SEO or anything other than my basic SEO plugin. on WordPress, which I built my own website. And so that's it. And somehow just being on the podcast, your name is getting out there, because Daniel's going to share this. Any guest is going to share it with their audience. You're going to share with your audience, and it goes to different platforms. Then it's available on demand. So somebody may want to look up the topic. How do I get on a podcast? This is going to show up, and they're going to learn about this. And so that's going to go to so many people, and it stays alive for a long time, because then it stays in the on-demand space as well.
Yeah, so it's evergreen. People have actually reached out to me saying, Daniel, I heard you on this podcast, and I'm thinking that was 2 years ago. That's crazy, right? People will be reaching out to you for years, for an investment that you're putting in today. Just you're putting in some time today, but for years you're going to reap the benefits. The other thing that's incredible about podcasting right now is the attention, right? So social media, everybody talks about social media. You ask most people, how do you promote yourself, whether it's your book or your business or your course or your whatever it is that you're promoting, everyone will tell you the same thing. Yeah, I'm promoting it on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever it is. Here's the thing. How much attention are you getting on those platforms? The average attention span on social media is about 3 seconds. That means that if you post, whatever it is, a promotion of your book on Instagram, Susie, who's sitting on the toilet till her thighs go numb, is scrolling through the feed, and she gets maybe a 1.5 seconds attention on your post. Do you think that she's going to be buying your book or buying your course or buying your stuff? No, because you haven't made any connection. You can't make an emotional connection in 3 seconds, right? You need time. So with podcasts, what's really incredible is that over 85% of people that listen to podcasts listen to the whole thing from beginning to end, the whole episode. And guess how long the average episode is? 45 minutes. Today, to get someone's attention for 45 minutes, that's a gold mine. You can't get that anywhere.
That's right. And imagine, and it's free.
And it's free. And it's free. And
it's not expensive.
And the people who are listening to podcasts, right? If you're listening to this right now, you're in a growth mindset, right? First of all, you are a growth-minded person. You are somebody who invests in your self-growth, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. You'd probably be just scrolling your Instagram feed or Facebook or whatever it is, or watching Netflix. Or, you've chosen to invest your time in learning. Well, those are the people that you want to speak to. Because those are the people that are going to invest in your products, in your services, in your book, in you. They're going to buy into you. If they're on social media, they're in a passive mindset. They're not in a buying or investing mindset. They're not. So you're reaching them at the wrong time. You're reaching them at the wrong time, and that's also why podcasting is amazing. The other thing as well is it's very easy to build trust, because when you go on someone's show, you automatically have trust with the audience because they trust the host, right? So all the people listening to this, you tune in regularly to Sheila's podcast, and you might have read her book. And so if she's having Daniel on her show, well, Daniel must be someone that's trustworthy, right? So it's the same thing as buying a pair of Nikes because Michael Jordan wore them. You kind of equate the two and go, oh wow, So it's like Sheila's the Michael Jordan of this audience. And I'm here, and by association, you're more likely to buy into what I say just because Sheila's had me on the show.
Yes. And, the thing is, this year, people are looking for ways to either share about their business in a different way, because now they've had to shut down. Again, where we are in the United States, a lot of our states are going on lockdown. And I know friends in Canada are going on lockdown. I'm not sure what it's like where you are, but it is something that is hard for business. So we need to reach out and find different ways to help our clients. Some of the people, I actually had a dog trainer on yesterday. He worked with the police. He was a police officer, and then he retired to become a dog trainer for the canine, and then for everybody, everybody's pets. And he was on, and his business first went down for about a month. Then he switched over and created an online program and got on a bunch of podcasts. And guess what happened? Now he has more business. He made 3 times the amount of money this year than he's ever made in his business, because he changed the way he did business, and he got his message out. And so that's incredible, where somebody else in that same position may be out of a job right now because they didn't use the social media to get their message out and change how they're doing things. So what he does is he has you record how your dog is misbehaving, let's say at home, and send that in, and the trainer works with you privately to help you fix that whole situation. Like, okay, the dog is stealing food or getting food off the counter, or I could go on, because I have a new puppy. And so, but that's it. That was a simple switch. And guess what? How much more money is he making now than when he started before he got on the podcast and started sharing his message and changing his format? So don't give up if you're listening in. And if you're just starting a brand, don't quit what other job you have, because it is going to take a few years to really build. But if you already have a working business that's making money, and you're working with clients, you're giving advice, you're helping people with whatever you're teaching or sharing about, you have a program or a course, a book, something like that, it's a great way to get your message out to more people very affordably while you're home, and much better than sitting and watching TV, because you're going to get your message out. And I love it. I'm talking to Daniel, and he's in Israel right now. This is incredible to me. I have made friends with people all over the planet doing this show, and I just love that. That's fun for me. That's like, this is my social time too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. And you never know who you're going to impact, right? You don't know. People say, but what have I got to say? What can I do? And the truth is that, everybody is a few steps ahead of somebody.
Yeah.
Right. There's always going to be people who are where you were once in your life. And those are the people that need you. They need to hear your story. They need to hear your message. It's, I produced an episode. So I just launched another podcast recently called Grow Your Show. And the goal, obviously, of the show is to help people to grow their show. I interview other, podcast hosts who have been very successful, and find out how did they grow their show. So we just literally yesterday produced an episode where my guest was talking about how he recorded an amazing podcast episode. It was the best one he's ever done. And then all of a sudden the electricity went out, and he lost the whole recording. And it was a devastating situation. And I shared this similar story where I also had an incredible podcast. There was an amazing guest. We really hit it off. Amazing content. And then I realized at the end, I didn't hit the record button. And this is after doing over 100 episodes. So I was like, Daniel, I can't believe you made such a silly error. Like, what an amateur thing to do. But I was saying on the podcast that it just goes to show that even people who have done it for a long time can make mistakes, and it's okay. You keep moving forward. Well, someone reached out to me today and said, Daniel, the timing is unbelievable. I produced an episode today, and I just started out, podcasting, and I did an episode, and at the end, I don't know what happened, but my computer suddenly shut down. And I lost the episode, and I was so upset. I was pulling my hair out. I was feeling so bad. And then I noticed your, Grow Your Show podcast. Someone sent it to me to listen to, and I listened to your episode, the first episode, and he's like, Daniel, you saved me, because I gained back hope. I felt motivated again. I felt like, you know what? It's not just me. The pros do it too. So you just don't know who you're going to affect and who you're going to impact in life. And it's worth just putting your message out there and sharing your stories, because you just don't know who you're going to affect.
Yes. And the other thing on my show, I actually have sponsors that help me with my show, because it is on the radio as well. And it also goes to all the major podcast channels. And so that's really great. And one of the things I do is I do share about what we have in the United States and Canada is something called 211. And 211 is actually 211 in your state. You type that into Google and you will have all the resources. So right now, if you're in a tough situation, you could start your podcast, but you may need to get food on the table, rental assistance, help with mental health, help for a friend or whatever. You're able to get free resources. And right now, people that have never needed resources like that may need them. And if they don't know just to type in 211 in their state or province, they're not going to be able to get that help. And so that's something, when I share that, I know, oh my gosh, that's going to help somebody that may need to feed their kids today, or may not lose their home because they were able to find a resource that's available, but they don't have a lot of marketing dollars to share about it. So I do share about things like that. And so if you have a passion, a mission, something you want to share to help people, maybe you're doing a nonprofit even, or starting something to help people with a cause, then that's another reason to start a podcast, because you're going to reach people in a way that they really need to hear your message. And if it helps people, there's something about, if it blesses one, it blesses all. It comes back to you and you're just enjoying what you're doing. So this is a way, maybe you love to volunteer in something that you really care about right now, but you can't do it anymore because things are shut down or shutting down or very restrictive. So they're not letting people volunteer. You're able to volunteer regarding your passion. Maybe it's helping pets, maybe, whatever it is, you're able to figure out a way to get on a podcast and have a show that's focused on helping that particular group that you care about. So there's another way that a podcast can help people, and you'll have fun. If you love talking already and meeting new people, you could totally do that and help your cause, whatever that is, in a new way.
Yeah, and I think being a guest on podcasts in a way is much easier than starting your own podcast for two reasons. One is that you don't have to worry about building the audience. The audience is already there. They're just waiting for you. And number two is, when you're trying to run the show, it takes a lot more mental energy to try to figure out, what questions to ask and how do I, how do I navigate this? You're essentially the sort of conductor of the show. But when you're just a guest, you're just being you. You're just answering questions that, that the host is asking, and you're just speaking like you're speaking to a regular human being. And I think that's the key, is if you want to be a great guest, the best guests are the ones that are just raw and real. And it's as if they're just sitting in a coffee shop having a conversation. Those are the best types of guests.
Very much. And it's a great place to start. I started being a guest on other people's shows before I actually started my own show. And then I was a guest on the radio show. So I got invited to go do that as well. So it was me being a guest and enjoying that. And I still do both. So it's something I have a blast getting to know people and getting the message out. Getting resources to people that really need help this year is so important. And so that's it as far as that goes with getting your message out. So Daniel, I'd love for you to share how people listening could connect with you, maybe get on the Podbooker program.
Podbooker is right now, it's free to join. You just go to podbooker.com. And you can sign up for a host profile. If you have a podcast, you can have a podcast profile on there. If you want to be a guest on podcasts, you just set up a guest profile. It takes less than 3 minutes to set it up. It's very easy and it's free. And on your Podbooker profile, you could share sort of all the information about yourself, any topics that you could talk about. And you can collect reviews, which is very exciting. It's a feature that we're launching very soon where you can actually ask hosts to give you a review. So when you are a guest on a show, and then, of course, you build those reviews, and the more reviews you get from hosts, the bigger shows you end up being able to be a guest on. So that's, podbooker.com. And if you are looking to hire an agency to do it for you, we only work with the top ranked podcasts and we guarantee placements. So for that, you just go to gefenmediagroup.com.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you again for being a guest on the show, and we will be back after these messages. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Sheila.
All right, you are tuning in to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. So now I would like to share a Dear Sheila with you. This is a fun Dear Sheila someone sent in. If you have a question and you'd like to have it shared on the air and answered, you can send that in to www.dearsheila.com, and I'm always happy to answer. Okay, take a listen. Here we go. Dear Sheila, I'm a single lady in my early 50s. I never thought I would be at this season in my life and not be married or in a committed relationship. I have had failed relationships where I keep dating the same type of man over and over again. So, I decided to take time to redefine myself and rediscover who I am. I'm not lonely. I really enjoy my own company. I have recently decided that I'm ready to date again. I'm finding it to be very challenging to connect to a man that I may be interested in because I am afraid of getting hurt. I find that I rely on my quick wit and a huge sense of humor to keep me emotionally safe and at arm's length. I don't want to allow myself to be taken advantage of, but I often have struggled in the past with setting boundaries. I'm a strong lady that works with horses while living in the country western lifestyle. I believe that my personality may be perceived as somewhat intimidating, even though I have strong feminine qualities. The men I have dated in the past often have wanted to get serious very quickly, without investing time for us to get to know each other, treating the process like a runaway horse. I want to protect myself and be emotionally safe. How can I be vulnerable with the people I am dating, yet establish boundaries while getting to know a possible love interest? Signed, Taking the Reins on a Relationship. Dear Taking the Reins, every relationship is unique, and just because you've had past relationships that may not have aligned with who you are, you've also changed over time. It seems like you've done a lot of self-work, and now you're ready to get back into a new relationship. The most important relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. So once you're strong and ready to meet new people, that's a good place to start. When you go back out and start meeting new people, start with the mindset that not everybody's going to be the same, like I said before, and that there are good, amazing, incredible people out there. So when you're thinking all these people are going to already ask for certain things or expect certain things, that's what you're going to start attracting. So start putting out the intention of, I'm looking for people that are looking for what I'm looking for. So think about all the things that you do and all your interests and commonalities, and look for people in various areas, because you don't have to do everything together in life. And when you're looking for a relationship, the main thing that you want to find is something where you can have a you, a me, and a we in a relationship. An interdependent, healthy relationship is where you can both come to the table and talk about your truth. So instead of wasting time going to dates trying to please the other person or give them whatever they want, come to the table and be honest about what you're looking for, so you don't waste time, and look for people that are honestly looking for what you're seeking. And that's going to save a lot of time. I've talked to a lot of newly married couples, and that's what they did on their first relationships, is they actually talked. They didn't pretend, they didn't dress differently or act differently for the other person. And that's what attracted them to each other. is they were just being real. And sometimes that was the part that they fell in love with. And so if you're staying real and being authentic in beautiful, authentic you and who you are, that's going to attract the person that's most aligned. So just doing your life, living on purpose, you're going to find and attract the people, whether it's your significant other, your best friend, whoever it is, in whatever kind of relationship that belongs in your world, just by being your best self every day. I hope that helps. As always, I wish you life, love, laughter, and light.
Thank you for listening to Dear Sheila, answering real questions with real solutions to reboot your life. If you have a burning question, submit your question now to www.dearsheila.com. www.dearsheila.com. Welcome to Dear Sheila, answering real questions with real solutions to help reboot your life. When is it time to give a relationship the boot? How to break up with any relationships that waste your time. Dear Sheila, I've been in a relationship with Paul for about 3 years. We decided to move in together recently, and it's not working out. My question is, should I end this relationship now? I don't want to hurt him, yet I'm hurting. My biggest complaint is that he takes me for granted and is way more self-centric than I realized. I broke up with him several times in the past and then missed him. As soon as we were reunited, the cycle started again. I now realize nothing has changed in all these attempts. How do I let him go without drama and hurt feelings? Signed, Broken Hearted. Dear Broken Hearted, this is definitely the year for rebooting and reinventing relationships. The reality is that love should not hurt, and when it does, it's often misaligned. The most important role we play in any relationship is how we teach others how to treat us. This requires healthy boundaries. It often takes self-love and the love for the other to realize it is time to move on. This breaking up action builds a muscle and sets a new standard for who you let into your life and what kind of person you will attract. Let's put the breakup process through the Boots formula. The B in Boots is for being. It's about who you are being and all you're doing and who you need to be during this situation. You are going to have to show up and be firm on your boundaries in order to be okay with small hurt feelings now as you move toward a relationship you desire. The first O in the Boots formula is orientation. In order to go get the outcomes you want, you must be brutally honest. The person I am in a relationship now continues to hurt me. What kind of relationship do I really want? The next O in the Boots formula is for order of operations. This gives clarity to the order you follow to leave current relationships and move toward the one you deserve. The order in which you do things is going to really drive your results. The T in the Boots formula is for thinking. This is where mindset and self-love have guided your decision. Breaking up is not a judgment against another person. It is an act toward what you really want. It is often in love that we sometimes have to break up with someone, end a relationship, a friendship, or evict a person who's abusive or struggling with an addiction. Thinking time and self-love and logic makes all the difference. The S in the Boots formula is for stepping up. This is the part that takes all the other pieces and puts you and your love life back into action. It is now time to rebuild and reinvent your life on your terms. My hope is that this video series and my new book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, will help. In my book and on my website, I provide plenty of free resources for anyone dealing with a rock-bottom situation to quickly get back into action. If you have any questions for Dear Sheila, message me at www.dearsheila.com. As always, I wish you life, love, laughter, and light. Volume 9. Dear Sheila, I have been a caregiver of my father for close to 10 years. He is a disabled veteran. I am a single woman of 3 adult children, and I am the only one who is able to care for him. I am so incredibly honored to get to care for my father. In the daily activities, I get exhausted with the tasks of managing treatment schedules. My social and personal life is very much on the back burner. My father shares his guilty feelings with me and says he is a burden. I assure my dad he's not. I want some help with his caregiving and feel that I am being inadequate with his efforts for feeling this way. Would you be able to offer me some navigation with looking for options to help me secure some resources to assist me with my dad? Also, how can I take some time to press the reset button to help me find some personal time for myself? Signed, Too Tired to Think. Dear Too Tired to Think, well, it is an honor to have such a beautiful daughter. Your dad must be an amazing man and a veteran. That's wonderful that you're helping him so much, although it sounds like it is too much. And the thing about being a parent, I don't know if you have children yourself as well, but the thing about being a parent is we want our children to have their best lives as well. So although it's honorable that you are helping your dad so much, the beauty that he is a veteran is that there are so many extra services to help him. So between those services and the services that are around to help people that need care, there are so many options for you to get free and low-cost services to help you care for your dad at this time so that you can be his daughter and be present with him to have magic moments and time together to enjoy. In my book and on my website, I have a list of resources for veterans and also for people that need elder care and assisted living and different types of home health options and referral agencies that you can connect with that will help you get your dad all taken care of and helped so that you can just enjoy that time together. And also there's another chapter in there that's how to have self-care and personal time. So you recharge, and when your dad spends time with you and you can talk about your memories and build some more magic moments together, that's going to be a great gift to him. And I hope this really helps. I'm so thankful that you wrote in about this, because I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there in the same situation that don't know about all the different services that are available for their parents who do need care. And I had to take care of both sets of grandparents, both sets of parents, all at once. I was very young and I had no clue, and that's why I felt it was very important to have a whole list of different referral services that can help get you connected and get help for your family members. I hope this helps you. As always, I wish you life, love, laughter, and light. Welcome to Dear Sheila, answering real questions with real solutions to help reboot your life. When is it time to buy a new home and live the life I want? I'm sick of settling. Dear Sheila, I have been moving from rental home to apartment to rental home for about 5 years. Now with COVID, I'm having lots of trouble with my current landlord, who comes into my place a few times a week and has removed most of my sense of privacy. The pool and activity room are closed, the gym is shut down, yet my rent remains the same. I feel like I'm stuck. I really want to just buy a house and get out of renting. I found a home that someone is willing to sell at an inflated price, and it really doesn't meet what I'm looking for long term. But the owner is offering to carry the loan, and I just want to get out of the terrible rental situation I'm in. The current landlord said they will be willing to let me out of the lease early for a small fee. My question is, should I move out, buy that high-cost house, or stay where I'm miserable? Signed, Homesick. Dear Homesick, this is definitely the year for rebooting and reinventing how we create and invest in our living spaces. Many people have shown up differently during our worldwide crisis. Sometimes emotions have been exaggerated due to financial or outside stress, and this year has brought much more of that into our home life. Continuing to stay stuck in an unhealthy rental situation is not the answer, and overpaying for a home you don't love isn't either. There is a solution to every problem. It sounds like finding your happy place for now will serve you and your family financially and in the long run. Because your landlord is willing to let you out of the lease, now is the time to reinvent your home life. Let's run this situation through the Boots formula. The B in Boots is for being. It is about who you are being in all you are doing and who you need to be during this situation. You are going to have to be really honest about how you and your family choose to invest in the best living space for the short term and the long term. The first O in Boots is for orientation. In order to get the outcomes you desire, you must be brutally honest here. What are your current living expenses? What new homes are available in your price range? And what living space will best serve you and your family? The outcome is happiness now, without getting into a home that is overpriced. If you shop around, you may find that you can rent or buy something that fits better for the short term and save for the outcome or the home purchase that you really want in the long run. The next O in the Boots formula is for order of operations. Now that you know who you need to be and your orientation, you can decide in which order you must do things to move out, find a new living space, and give yourself the peace you seek now while you take the necessary steps to build your credit or just take time that you might need to purchase your dream home without the emotion and rush of just getting out of a bad arrangement. In the long run, the order in which you do things is going to really drive your results. The T in the Boots formula is for thinking. This is where your mindset comes in. Stop waiting for the perfect home and decide on a home that honors your current family needs. The reality is that in a few years' time, your children will go off to college and your home buying requirements may change. Even though you may continue to rent in the short term, moving to a home that serves your present needs instead of overpaying or staying where you are will make all the difference. The S in the Boots formula is for stepping up. This is the part that puts all of the other pieces you have planned into place and gets you and your home life back into action. The time is now for us to collectively work together to rebuild this year. My hope is that this video series and my new book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, helps. In my book and on my website, I provide plenty of free resources for anyone dealing with a rock-bottom situation to help them reinvent and reboot their business and personal life. If you have a question for Dear Sheila, message me at www.dearsheila.com. Now I have some homework for you. I would love for you to grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is now available on Audible as well as on Amazon and Kindle and at www.sheilamac.com. I will be donating a book or course. If you look online, you'll see the courses I offer as well to women's shelters across the United States and Canada whenever a course or book is purchased. So check it out, and I look forward to sharing more with you next time. As always, I wish you life, love, laughter, and light.